What's up, everyone? Today, my guest is Greg Helbeck. He is the owner of Velocity House Buyers and the host of the Real Estate Investing Fast Track podcast. Excited to have you on here. I'm Jake Garay from the Garay team with Berkshire Hathaway, and you're listening to my podcast, Selling the Suburbs. I'm sitting down with real estate agents, investors, experts, and various professionals throughout the industry. On Selling the Suburbs, we're discussing the truth about real estate, entrepreneurship, and the ever-changing housing market. We've known each other now, what seems like probably 8-9 years.
Maybe even 10, dude.
Yeah, we're getting old.
I remember seeing you at Ice Time.
I was just going to say, ironically, we met at like pickup hockey at Ice Time.
That's wild.
We were both getting started in real estate at the time. Very green, kind of went two different avenues, but... What were you gonna say?
Introduced me to Darren Hardy, dude.
Yeah.
That was you. And that, like, I've been giving the compound effect out for
plug.
10 years now, dude. It's crazy,
That's
bro.
one of the
that
best
was
books.
from you.
That's one of the
It's
best books
crazy,
ever.
bro.
I love that book. It's awesome to have you here. I'm glad that you're in New York and we got to sit down and do this.
Yeah, man. I was looking forward to this. We worked it out like last minute, and I'm like, yeah, I'll come to Poughkeepsie and do an in-person podcast at 8 in the morning. Absolutely.
Why not?
Why not? You know, got up
I
early
love
today,
that. I know you're usually up early, what, 5 a.m.?
It's 5, 6, depends on
the day.
Depends on the time zone. Yeah. It's
No,
California,
awesome.
you got to be up early.
Yeah,
Or
we'll
else you're
catch
screwed.
up. Yeah, you're 3 hours behind the East Coast,
Exactly.
right? Yeah.
This one's like 4 in the morning now.
Your phone starts ringing.
Yeah, my phone in California. If you get up at like 7 o'clock out, it's 10 here, you're done.
You're done. Yeah,
You're done.
I can imagine.
Happy to be on.
Cool. Thank you for coming. So, wanted to kind of start off, tell us how you got into real estate. Obviously, you're an investor, you're a wholesaler, you do flipping, you're also a landlord, you do a lot of different stuff.
Yeah.
I know you also do some coaching as well with some people, some sales training. So tell us kind of like, how did you get to where you are today? You've built up a very successful business, a very impressive business. Where did it start? Like, how did you get in? What interested you in real estate? Kind of, take us through that.
For sure. So I got started in 2015. So this was almost 8 years ago in September, it'll be 8-year anniversary. Can't believe how fast it flies, honestly, because you're just like going and going and going. I went to like the real estate specific. My friend sent me a Snapchat of a seminar in Newburgh, which I drove through Newburgh to get here today. And it was like, learn how to flip houses with no money down. And I had no money. And I wanted to flipping houses always was something that was interesting. And I went to the seminar and they were talking about wholesaling. And this is before wholesaling was what it was today.
Right.
This is a different day. It's like dog years in real estate.
Yeah,
1 year is
seriously.
5. So I remember they were like, you can buy a house with someone else's money and sell it to someone else for a profit on the same day. And I was like, I can do that. And I remember at that event, it was like a pitch seminar.
Yep.
I was like, I'm going to be a real estate investor. And then they upsold us to like this $2,000 course. I split it with Devin 50-50. So we spent $1,000 each, and then we went to Yonkers like 2 weeks later to learn like the more deep training. After that seminar, we got out of there and we were like, all right, let's the big thing that stops a lot of people is they get this information in and then they don't take any action. The day I got out of that seminar, I started to market. Yeah. I went on Craigslist and I started doing bandit signs. So I knew that like the takeaway I got from the seminar was like, you got to market and you have to get going right away. You can't like procrastinate. I didn't need anything to be perfect. And we went out and it took me 9 months to do a deal. And the first ever like real deal I did was actually in Poughkeepsie, New York. That's not far from where we are right now.
That's hilarious.
It was on 26 Glenwood, I think.
Okay, yeah.
It was a Cape house. There was like a tenant in there. It was all sketchy. It was pit bulls. And I remember I wholesaled it with a guy named Dave Brown. He was like my first mentor. We split it 50-50, $5,000. And that's how I got my first deal. And the rest, I wouldn't say the rest is history after that. It took a little time to get momentum, but that was the first ever it was like not like probably a half mile from here right now. It's
That's
crazy.
awesome.
Yeah.
It's funny, as you were talking, I'm laughing because it's like, you're like Craigslist, bandit signs.
Yeah, man.
It's like, that was like the old school
Ghetto,
cheap,
bro.
Yeah, super like, we buy houses, cash. It's funny to see like, I'm sure as your business has grown, the way you've done, I know that you are very analytical in how you do things.
Yeah.
So I can imagine, how that's transitioned from
crazy,
like,
dude.
do whatever you can, just try and find a deal. But it's interesting because you say it took 9 months, right? So most people would have quit well before 9 months.
Oh yeah, dude. Especially in New York, it's like the hardest market in the country.
Well, that's the thing. It's that's what they don't tell you in those classes when you get started. It's like, oh, by the way, New York's an attorney state. Both buyer and seller are going to have an attorney. Oh, by the way, no attorneys like wholesalers, right?
None.
Like they hate wholesaling. Nobody wants to touch it. The transaction takes 60, 90, 120 days once you get into contract.
Which could take 2 weeks to get into contract.
Correct.
Yeah.
You know, meanwhile, in other states, you could close in 2 weeks. Right.
Oh, yeah.
It's a completely different way of doing business. And that's why a lot of investors don't want to touch New York. It's because of how long it takes. And
it's so
now
hard.
the benefit is the prices are much higher than they are in other places in the country. So the spreads could be better. But like, you know, it's all, as you know, what your money is getting for the investment that you're making. So
100%. And I found in New York that, believe it or not, there's less competition here compared to like Dallas, where I've done a lot of deals in, or San Diego. Because it's just so hard and people can't last here. So there are definitely buyers, but it's not like a major Phoenix, Dallas, San Diego. You're gonna have less sellers are gonna call multiple investors around here.
And if you think about it, like if you listen to a big podcast like the Bigger Pockets podcast or something, and they run off their top 5, top 10 markets in the country to invest in, they're never in New York.
It'll never be here.
Never. Ever. It's never really in the tri-state area, Connecticut, New Jersey, because it's very similar in those markets as well. And so it's interesting because, as you said, yes, the deals are harder, but there is less competition because nobody wants to touch it, or you have to be really sophisticated and know what you're doing, how to handle that transaction. Otherwise, you'll never get the deal to the closing table.
No, especially in like Westchester and Rockland. Like I've done deals there. That's like another level like of sophistication. The city, we're doing a deal in Queens right now. Like, and it's the big leagues.
You see it on the brokerage side as well.
Oh yeah.
Like the transaction and how it's handled on a $2 million property in Westchester versus a $400,000 home in the Hudson Valley, like it's a completely different way of doing business. The way that the inspection is, the way that the contract process is, the attorneys that are involved in those deals, they're so much more detail oriented when you go downstate and you're in the city or you're in Westchester, because number one, the price points are much higher. You know, the fees are much more expensive, so they're getting paid a lot more. So they're going to be a lot more attention to detail. But it's amazing how even 30, 40 miles away from each other, the way of doing business can be completely different.
It's crazy, man. We flipped a piece of land in Rye last year, and it was easier to do that deal because of everyone's sophisticated. I think we bought the dirt for like $575, just the dirt infill lot, and wholesaled it. But like the guy got a contract in it like not even a week. It was like 5 days. It was just so much more professional. Then you come up to Orange County and people are just like, it's just a little bit more of a boiler room kind of scenario.
And I think it's also true, and I know we've talked about this before, like if you've got a smoking good deal, it makes it so much easier, right? Yeah. Because now it's like, that piece of property in Rye might sound expensive at $575, but when you realize that you can build a $3, $4, $5 million home,
what the case was.
It makes it pretty obvious that you can make a lot of money when you do that.
Oh yeah.
I know these markets where people will buy a home for $800,000, $1 million, tear it down. They'll invest another, $1 to $1.5 million into it to build a brand new construction home, and then they sell it for $3.5, $4 million. So when you think about a piece of land for $500,000, $600,000, where you can put $1 million in and sell it for $3 million, like the spread's there pretty damn good. The
spread is there. And that's the thing in like Rye and like Lower Westchester, like you can do that. You can buy the house for market value sometimes, depending on the price. Bulldoze it, which is not easy around here. That's the problem. And you can make the numbers work and make $500,000-$600,000 net profit.
It's crazy.
Building.
Which is nuts. That's for some people you could take just that one deal and do it over the course of 2 years, and you're making $250,000 a year.
Yeah, literally on one
which is
house.
Crazy.
That's the power of real estate, man. It's like you can make it any way you want to make it. You don't have to. It doesn't have to be like a one size fits all. Like scale your huge wholesaling company, like I see a lot of people do.
And that's the thing. Like that's always been my biggest gripe with like the courses, the trainers, the books. It's always one size fits all. And I see it on the brokerage side when I get new investors, because I work with a lot of younger people who are like, I want to get into real estate investing. I want to buy multifamilies, or I want to do a BRRRR, or I want to flip. And they're reading a book about like general practice, right? Like general tactics, things that you can do. Number one, the book might have been written when it was a buyer's market, right? It might have been written talking about doing deals in Dallas, Texas, or in Florida, as opposed to how the transaction goes in New York. So it's so important that when you talk to whoever you're dealing with in the markets, whether it's attorneys, whether it's agents, that you're understanding what the local practices are
Yes.
versus like what you read in a book. Because I have people, oh, well, so-and-so on a podcast said I could just do this. And I'm like, that might be true in another state, but that's not how the business is going to go here. And if you deploy that strategy here, all that's going to happen is you're going to make a bunch of offers, get no deals, get burnt out, get frustrated, and you're going to quit.
Yeah.
And so, 100%. It's a testament to your success that, number one, you stuck it out as long as you did. I mean, 9 months in the grand scheme of things, when you think about it, is not a long amount of time. No. But we both know that new investors, and I see it on the agency side as well, very few people will stick something out 9 months without making a single dollar.
I was working for free. I mean, I was paying to work, right? Because I was spending money. Yeah, gas, like bandit sign fee. Yeah, it's like, but looking back, I was telling someone last week, like, that was 1,000% worth it. Like now, right?
Yeah.
Like at the time,
in hindsight, it always seems that way.
The thing is, I knew it was always going to work, though. Like, I knew I was going to be successful, not because I'm some stud, but I was just like, I know I'm going to make this work. It's just going to be a matter of time. Yeah. And I heard enough other people in other areas making money, and then I found people here making money. I'm like, if these people can do it, like, it's possible. It's not like, you know what I mean? It's just when you're new, though, you have no experience, usually no money, so it's hard to believe in yourself. So you have to like borrow the success of others through social proof in order to like justify the work you're putting in and the money you might be spending. But like they say, like, it doesn't get easier, you get better, which is true, because then you have experience. Like, experience is something that people just don't value enough. Like, when you have 150 deals under your belt, you kind of know what's going on, right? But when you have 2 or 0, you have nothing to go back on, you know?
And I always say that, like, being on the agency side of things, right? You get paid based on the problems that you're solving.
100%.
Right? Like, a more sophisticated agent who has 150, 200, 500 deals under their belt, it's very hard for them to be in a scenario that they haven't seen before.
Yes.
Right? And so what happens is you go through that experience and you know how to get that deal to the closing table.
Yes.
Right? And just like you, if we don't get a closing done, we don't get paid.
No.
So it doesn't matter. You could spend 2 years on a deal. It doesn't matter. If it doesn't close, you're not getting any money.
All that works for nothing.
Exactly. And so a sophisticated agent can take a situation where maybe a brand new agent would never get that deal done, and they can get it done. And the same exact thing for you. You've done hundreds of deals.
Yeah.
So you know, like, hey, I've seen this scenario before. Yeah. I know how this plays out. I know how to get this to the closing table. And that's why it is so important to actually go and seek out the people who have experience, seek out a mentor, seek out partners, which are, it's funny, those are 2 things I wanted to talk to you about today.
Yeah.
Because I know you are heavily involved in seeking out people with knowledge, right? Personal development. You go to a lot of events, you do a lot of networking. What made you decide that, hey, this is what I need to do, right? Because I think a lot of people, they read the books, they listen to the podcasts, but very few people will go out and actually seek out the mentorship.
Yeah.
So like, how do you find those people? And what made you decide, like, this is what I need to do? I need to go and find these people. Like, why did you do that?
That's a great question. I'll start it with a story. So I went on an appointment when I was newer in Pearl River, and it was from a bandit sign. And I got kicked out of the house because I didn't know what I was doing. I actually took Frank, one of my first mentors, good friend to this day. I'm like, why don't you come with me and then I'll wholesale this house to you because I'm clearly going to buy it based on my track record. I got kicked out of the house, all right? And I was sitting in my car, and I was like, I need to get good at sales. There's no, like, I'm embarrassed. I got kicked out of this house. I had no process, nothing. I'm just like demoralized. And I'm like, I'm going to get really good at sales, and I'm going to find a training program that is specific to real estate investing, and I'm going to go all into that. So ironically, like a week later, I found this guy named John Martinez, and he had this real estate investing sales training, like niche product. And I bought it. And I was like, I'm going to literally do everything this guy says. And like, turns out it worked. And then I got pretty good at sales and negotiating, how to communicate and how to like work a sales process. So like that little failure of getting kicked out of the house turned me into a sales machine because I knew I had no choice. And in order for me to like be successful, instead of like trying to piece everything together and like guess here and guess there, I'm like, why don't I just find something that works? And this guy like literally is teaching the thing I need to know, and let me buy into his program and learn from him directly. And then that led to a relationship with him, which opened up all these other doors. But like, I knew that the easiest way to get to where I wanted to get to was to kind of buy my way in there, like for what, 4 or 5 or whatever it cost. Cause I knew the ROI on that. Like if I spent $5,000 on a sales training course and that taught me how to make an extra 25 grand on one deal, like you know, it was like 5X, right?
Yeah.
And then you have the thing with the skills, when you invest in people and skills, it's like, you have that forever.
Right.
Like you have that skill. I could always go out and negotiate a deal. You drop me off anywhere in the country, I could find a way to make money because of the sales skills, not because of, you know, like the money that I might have or not.
Right.
You know?
And that's the thing when you hear a lot of really successful people, they're like, I could lose everything tomorrow and build it right back up.
Yeah, it's a skill set, bro.
It's skills, it's experience, it's knowledge, and you can't take that away.
No.
It's just interesting because a lot of people won't go out and seek out that one-on-one training. They won't. And I think part of it is probably that they feel uncomfortable. Like it's awkward to reach out to someone.
Hey, I need help.
Hey, can you? Exactly. Yeah. But I think when you know, and you probably feel this way now, talking briefly on like, you know, I know you're doing some sales training for people.
Yeah.
And you want to help people out.
Yeah.
Right? You know, it's like, so I think people don't realize that the successful people in those positions, they see the failure. They want people to succeed.
Yes.
You know, I think there's a misnomer that everybody's competing with each other when in reality, it's a lot of collaboration.
That alone, brother, is $1 million tip you just gave on the show. Because even in like a small market or a big market, you can achieve a lot more together. And there's so many deals, listings, wholesale deals. Right? You can get so much more. We JV deals with people here all the time, bro.
So what made you decide that you wanted to partner? Because I know you talk about it a lot, partnering on deals.
Yeah.
You know, how do you structure those? Like what was the, you know, the reason that you decided like, hey, I want to start partnering with people? What made you realize that it wasn't a competition and that it was more collaboration?
So the first thing I'll say about that is like, I knew that in terms of like a long-term relationship with a business partner or a JV partner, it's so much more fun making money with other people, first of all, than it is by yourself. I've made a bunch of money by myself. I've made a bunch of money with other people. I like making money with It's just fun. Like you're experiencing the deal together. You can problem solve and troubleshoot together and whatnot. But the first way I started doing this was really when I started buying in Texas in 2018, which I don't buy there anymore. But I was living here before I moved to San Diego, and I needed somebody in Texas who could be the boots on the ground because there's a lot of things that I couldn't physically do. And this is my skill set. Like I could pull that off now without having a partner, but like at the time it made more sense.
So 3 years into the business.
Yeah, I met this guy at a mastermind. I'm like, hey, I got this property in the hood of Dallas. Do you want to go lock it up and we'll split it? He's like, of course. We lock it up. We wholesaled it, split the profit. I never had to go there. Like I got half the wire and I was like, holy shit. And then I did it again the next week. We had another house. It was a $30,000 wholesale that got 15 grand. Never had to go to the house. He did all the work. And I was like, okay, I'm not netting everything, but I'm not doing much of the work.
Right.
And that snowballed into like 40, 45 deals. And I was like, never, like I would go to Texas once in a while to just like check up on shit. But like, yeah, I'm like, this is totally worth it because I only have to do what I was really good at, which is lead generation sales.
I was just going to say, so you were sourcing the deals.
Yeah.
He was basically the boots on the ground. Yeah. So
he would sell them.
So he may not have been as good at sourcing the deals, but you weren't as good at, you weren't physically there.
No, it would have been a pain in the ass. Yeah.
So it's like, it's a perfect where without you, he does no deals. Without him, you do no deals.
Exactly.
So it's like, why not do 40, 45, 50 deals, whatever it is, together and split the profit? So
and not have to go there. I moved to San Diego like during that time. And I remember like when I moved to San Diego, I was like, wait a minute, doesn't matter where I live. I'm just using my phone and the computer. So it was just like, oh my God, like I have freedom. That was freedom to me.
Right.
I didn't have to be anywhere. Like physically didn't, I just, as long as I had my phone and my internet on the computer, awesome. I was all I needed, man.
That's unbelievable.
And that's been like that to this day, bro. I mean, like there's flips around here. I go to them if I'm here, but I don't need to go to them.
Well, yeah, I mean, you travel a lot. You're all over, right?
Yeah, dude.
So you get to experience a much more full life of getting to travel, see these different communities. But then also what I've noticed too when I've traveled, especially out of the country, you see ways things are done in other places, and you're like, you could do that, you know, wherever, right? Like you could take something like, for example, we went to Belize and you see some of the real estate development that's going on there, and the way they're building communities. And you're like, it would be really cool if people started to do things like that here, right, in New York. And like the quality of life is better. Like, for example, down there, they have a lot of these communities that are kind of focused on like expats, people who come in, they're there for a few months, then they leave and they manage their rentals for them. And like, you can go down there and buy a piece of property, a house on the water, $250,000, $300,000 in some of the most beautiful beaches you've ever seen. Live there for 3 months, and then they'll rent it out and manage it for you the rest of the year, and it basically pays for itself.
That's unbelievable.
Right? So you see stuff like that, and you're like, why couldn't you do something like that in in the States. So
Yeah.
it's just cool to get out and see different communities, see the way people are doing things. It just gives you a more full perspective on things.
It's wild. Every time I go somewhere, like I was just got back from Japan a couple weeks ago, and it's like you go over like some like Belize, Japan, like not Canada or Mexico, where it's
Right.
like same shit. Well, not Mexico, but Canada. Let's be honest here, secret time. But you go like far, and you're like, man, you come back to America, and you just have a different perspective.
Right.
And I was only in Japan for 4 days, and I came back, and I was like, man, like that's a different planet.
And
out there.
that's a completely different culture. Right, the way
Dude, they don't even speak
things.
English here, really.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah, and like engineering is so ingrained in their culture and their discipline, and so there's a lot to learn from other cultures. When you can't live in a bubble all the time.
No,
right? Because if you don't get out of that bubble, you'll never expand your knowledge base. You'll never grow as an individual, and like
exactly,
it's so interesting to see.
Yeah.
So kind of take us. So you do that first deal. Obviously, you kind of went briefly through. What are you doing today? Like, what's the plan? Where are you kind of going? Where are you trying to get to?
Yeah. So we got our business from like, it was like me just trying to get by to do deals, to prove a concept. To then like a couple years later, I was a solopreneur, JV in deals in Texas, making a good amount of money, like with no overhead, zero. I mean, I was cold calling on my cell phone. So like really didn't have any overhead. And then from there, I kind of got burned out from doing that because it was like a lot of just like, it was dependent upon my time. Like I didn't spend the 4 hours cold calling. I wasn't making the money. So then I had some money saved up from those deals. And then I started like just being like a quasi one-man band, just back in New York, like living in San Diego, just spending money on direct mail. Cause that is a channel I've really like figured out how to do direct mail.
Yep.
And now I wasn't trading that much time for money because I was spending the money on mail, and we were, making
more
money.
automated.
Yeah. Automated. And then, buying houses over the phone. And then from there, I started hiring people. So I did that for like another like year and a half. Then I hired an assistant. This is in 2021. Then I hired Brett, my acquisitions guy, who's like a quasi partner. And then I have another person now. So I have 3 full-time people, including myself. And now like every month we're getting, 6 to 7 contracts in a month. We're closing 3 to 5 deals a month.
Wow.
And we're doing, probably 70% wholesaling. And the other 30%, I'm either going to flip it or keep it as a rental. So we've gotten the business to now, we'll probably do like 60 deals this year, like investment properties, including rental, and actually excluding rentals is probably, if you count the rentals, maybe 67-ish, probably 7 properties a year. And, it got pretty big, and it didn't really it doesn't really seem like, it's weird. Like you're like, oh my God, we did like 33 deals the first 6 months. And I was like, holy shit, it didn't really feel like it. You're just like, all right, like offers in, system, we have systems and processes. And now I'm like, oh wow, like if I wanted to get to 100 flips, like that's possible now, because you could see like how you'd have to get there. It's not like we're doing it right now, but like I can see the path to get there.
And I think one of the things that I've always learned from you and spoken with you about is you have very specific ways of doing things, right?
I'm very analytical, believe it or not.
Yeah.
People don't believe that when they know me.
I know for a fact, you track all your KPIs.
Oh, like
right?
science. Yeah.
I always, when I'm talking to the agents on my team, I have that unique perspective because a lot of people don't know I was in the investment side before I was in the brokerage side.
Yeah.
Right. So I did the direct mail, I did the bandit signs, I did the cold calling, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And so I know what you have to do to run a successful business in that sense of like tracking your numbers.
Oh yeah.
Right. Cause like you can't go out and spend, 10 grand on a direct mail campaign and not know how many calls you got, know, where do you go from there? It's like, and that's what people do. They'll go out and they'll spend a bunch of money. And then it's like, okay, now what? You get, your phone rings off the hook for the first 7-10 days, and then the phone calls stop. And then you're like, all right, I guess I got to go spend another 10 grand on direct mail.
It's crazy.
And there's no follow-up. There's no, cost per lead, cost per deal. You don't know what your numbers are.
Yeah.
And so taking that perspective into the real estate brokerage side of things, agents operate the same exact way. Nobody has like a business model that they can do that they say, okay, I'm going to go spend X amount of money. This is what I'm going to get for that money. Like, this is how I can turn that. And to your point, you can now look at your systems and say, well, if my cost per deal is X, I know that I have to spend this amount of money to generate a deal. If I want to get to 100 deals a month or a year, this is what I have to do. Like, this is the inputs that I put into the system to get the desired outputs, right?
Yeah.
And so it's it's a completely different approach. It's a much more like Silicon Valley startup type tech approach, right? Where it's like, you really got to know what you're getting yourself into, track every single metric, track every single thing. And that's what I'm doing in my business now. It's like, I know the day I met someone, how long it takes for that deal to close, how long it takes for the accepted offer to contract. So now I can tell you, hey, in New York, it's taking on average 76 days once your offer is accepted to get to closing.
Okay, that makes sense in New York.
So that way I can go into my business and say, hey, if I want to do 100 deals this year, how do I get to that number? Well, I need to generate, X amount of leads, but it's not good enough to know that you get this many leads and get this many contracts if you don't know how long they're going to take to close.
Because then you're going to have this big pipeline with no cash coming in. And
exactly.
The GCI is going to get all clunky.
Exactly. And then you can't be strategic in how you go about planning your business. And also okay, you get a lead. Well, some leads take 30 days to actually get an accepted offer. Some leads I have some that are 2 years.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just constant and consistent follow up.
Yeah.
So, I'd say on average, it's probably about 270 days from when I meet someone until when they actually, close a deal.
Deal closes and is actualized. Yeah.
So it says, okay, well, that's great.
Almost a year.
Right. It's 9 months. So that's great. Okay, well, I want to close a deal next month. What do I do?
Well, you should have been working 9 months ago.
Exactly. And that's the problem is that people don't realize how long the lifespan of a transaction is, especially in New York where we have...
Especially in the retail business because people are getting financing and there's a lot more days on market activity.
Correct. And there's a lot more deals that die because of dads and inspections and, all of the different things that can come up during the due diligence process. It's a much more emotional transaction versus an investment where it's dollars and cents. It's trading money, right? So it's, okay, I'm going to give you $1 and I'm going to make $1.50, or I'm giving you $1 and I'm making 75 cents. That doesn't make any sense. I'm not going to do that, right? So it's just analytics, but in the retail side of things, it's all emotion, right? Because you're buying for your kids, you're buying for your family, you're buying with your, your parents and everything else like that. So it's a roller coaster for them.
Oh, I give you props for dealing, because that's all you deal with, right? For the most, you do some investment stuff too, but the majority of the stuff with consumers and dude, we had a deal in Delaware fall apart at the 11th hour, and I was in Japan. I almost put cinder blocks on my feet and went in the Pacific and said, dude, it was just such an emotional disaster. Like you said, it was such a poorly poor performance from everyone involved. It just was a shame, you know. It was a tragedy.
Well, it's frustrating because you it's blood, sweat, and tears into every single deal, and when you're on the retail side of things, it can be even more difficult because sometimes you'll see people cut off their nose to spite their face.
Yeah.
Right? They will be so emotional and it's right here. I see what is the best path forward for you. And, we try to get them to see that, but it doesn't always work out.
No.
And sometimes we take the blame for that, even though you may have their best interest in mind and you see, because look, if you lived in your home for 40 years, you don't know how the real estate industry has changed tremendously in 5 years, let alone 10 or 15 or 20. If you lived in your home for 20, 25 plus years, there was no Zillow. There was no MLS online. The way of doing business has completely changed, but they don't understand that, right? It's their house. It's where they raise their kids. So it's a completely different psychology. So for us as an agent, how do you plan your business around that? Well, the only way is to do a lot of deals and then track all of the metrics that you possibly can to just try and find an average.
Yep.
Right. So, okay, I'm going to meet 100 sellers and maybe 50 of them are ready to sell this year and 50 of them are going to be sellers in 2024, 2025, 2026. And then setting up the follow-up systems for that and then planning your business. Because I know people will be like, oh, well, I want to sell, 25 listings this year. Well, that doesn't mean you need to get 25 listings. It means you got to go out and get probably 125 CMAs, right? And you see that. So if you want to go out and do 100 deals this year, well, how many leads do you need to have?
Thousands.
Probably tens of thousands.
We're 1 out of 22 is our conversion.
So basically, for every 22 leads
we
that
buy
you
one
get,
house.
And so how many? So use one source, right? What's your most effective source? Meaning the one that converts at the highest rate. Is it direct mail?
PPC, Google Ads.
So that's
inbound marketing.
I was just going to say, because they're seeking you out.
Yeah, PPC.
So how many, well, it's tough because something like that, you can't really track.
PPC is 1 out of 15.
1 out of 15.
Closed, not contract is less, but there's always fallout.
For something like direct mail, how many pieces of mail do you have to send to get one lead?
So, oh man, to get one lead on direct mail nowadays, because it's changed I mean, you need at least like 2,000, no, maybe 1,000 mail pieces to get one lead.
So you're
But
talking
if you
about,
want 16 leads, you got to send 16,000 mailers.
well, if you just said 22-ish, right? That
Yeah.
means you're going to spend 22,000 letters
yeah, it's
to
insane.
get one deal.
Yeah, it fluctuates, but I have
Right,
to
of course. Yeah, absolutely.
It's hairy, dude. It's
Yeah.
like $6 to $8 grand in ad spend to make like $25,000, $30,000.
See, so you right there off the
I
top
have
of
that
your
number
head.
in my Because
Exactly.
I know, because I'm like, it's a lot. We spend a shitload of money on mail, and I'm like justifying it because I know that like every mail campaign we send on average, it's gonna be like 3 to 4 to 1 return.
See, now, what I really respect about your business is that, because you talked about doing cold calling.
Yeah.
Right? And I think there's a place for that 100% in
For
both the
beginners.
brokerage
Yeah.
side and the investment side.
Yeah.
But I always, when I talk to agents, because I know agents who will cold call 5, 6, 7 hours a day, and I'm like, that's fine, right? To get started, but is that what you want to be doing in 20 years?
No.
Because if that's the entire way you source all of your business, then guess what? In 20 years from now, it's the only way that you're going to be able to generate business.
Yeah.
Right? Especially if you don't get a lot of repeat business. So you recognize that, and you built a system that was, again, a system of inputs of, if I spend X amount of money, I get this much back.
Paid marketing, bro, is the when you can get to the paid marketing level. It's hard in the beginning because people don't have money when they start, which is totally understandable. You can trade. It's just you're trading money for more money. It's
Yeah.
like an ATM machine.
It's investment. It's investment. It's investing in real estate. It's investing in the
in
stock
marketing,
market.
yeah.
You're just investing in a business. You're investing in a way to
You're
generate.
investing in your company. And
That's it.
And even like, for example, like, you know, we had a terrible July. A bunch of stuff went wrong. I went into my own pocket to fund that marketing operation because that's where it came down to.
Mm-hmm.
But I know I'm going to get my money. Like I'm investing in an asset, which is my company, which has been around for 8 years, which is like one of the bigger wholesalers around here. So like, I have no problem doing that. And a lot of new people
Can't do that.
Can't stomach, or either they can't do it or they can't stomach the fact, oh my God, spend 10 grand on mail. What happens if it doesn't work?
Right.
Well, what happens if it does work? And you make 30, you know?
Right. And then you can go out and reinvest
And
that
take
30.
that 10 and put it back and then make another. It's like the thing with mailings and any paid marketing and like real estate investing, wholesaling, flipping, whatever. It's like, you just need one good deal from that to like pay for the whole thing.
Right.
Like if you know you're going to make $30,000 on a wholesale deal, which around here is not like uncommon, you spend 10 grand, like you're going to make 20K of gross profit.
It's a 300% return on your
Yeah,
investment.
that's sick. And then you're just going to keep getting better. And then you're going to have leads that you're going to follow up with. Like it just snowballs. And like we've done direct mail campaigns that have been 10 to 1 in the past. That doesn't happen all the time, but like
It
we've
can.
had 10 to 1 returns. Like
Yeah.
where every dollar we spent, we got $10 back.
And the thing
Just
is,
nuts.
if you said to someone, well, you can go buy Apple at $100 a share and it's going to go to 1,000, they do that 100% of the time.
100%.
But when they don't see the clear path forward,
Yeah.
they won't
There's
do
a lot of
it.
variables with because the thing is real estate is like people make this real estate investing business, wholesaling, flipping, rentals. It's sales and marketing. That's all it is. It's just masked as real estate investing. But like you're in the sales and marketing business. I'm in the sales and marketing. Everybody who has a business, the plumber is in the sales and marketing business. Maybe he gets his marketing from referrals, but he has to sell that customer on why he should change their boiler versus the other guy.
Yep.
Everybody, if you can just accept that you're in the sales and marketing business and get good at those two things, it doesn't matter what product or service you're selling. You're always going to be able to make money. You know what I mean? Like people don't realize it. And it took me a while to realize that. It took me years to figure that out. But like once I do that, I was like, oh shit, lead gen and conversion.
And that's why you see so many people who are in those types of bits. So for example, like whether it's real estate on the investment or the agency side, whether
Yeah.
it's in life insurance or,
Yeah.
you know, you see those people develop those skills and then go on to become super successful
Oh, big
business
time,
owners
dude.
in completely different industries.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's all about sales and marketing.
That's all it is.
And I think a lot of people, they are turned off by that because it's
Scary.
Well, it's scary, but it's also you're exposing yourself.
Yes.
Right? Like you're exposing what people really think of you, right? Like, so sales, a lot of it is how does the customer perceive you?
Yeah.
Right? What do they think? Is Greg a trustworthy guy? Does he have my best interest in mind? Is he knowledgeable? Or is he just like a snake oil salesman who's just trying to take a buck from me? And so people don't like to be exposed like that, where they're saying like, oh, I'm going to find out what my friends, my family, especially on our side of things, right? Because everybody gets their real estate license and then just assumes that their friends and their family are going to go and work with them. And it's like, well, if they don't think you're all that serious of a person, they're
Why
not going
would
to
they
trust a
wanna work with you?
$500,000 purchase or sale with you. you know, and
that's a truth bomb right there, bro.
and people don't like that, right?
Yeah.
Like they get so angry. Well, why wouldn't you just work with me? And it's like, well, some people will. And those, a lot of the time, unfortunately, I saw an article the other day that, you know, bad buyers agents are costing home buyers millions of dollars right now.
I just had that happen in Delaware. It was a disaster, bro.
And that's the thing. And I had clients who 2020, 2021, hey, I know prices are rising quickly, but they're not going to stop rising. You got to buy now. You got to buy now. Trust me, I'm not just trying to sell you something, but interest rates are going to go up. They can't go down any further, right? Prices are going to continue to rise. Look at the inventory. Look at what's going on. You got to buy. Spend the extra 10, 15, 20,000 to get in the door, because in 2 years, you're going to be priced out.
Yep.
And clients who had $500,000 budgets, now they're trying to spend $700,000 on the exact same house.
Yep.
And all they did was take what could have been 200 grand in equity in that home and waited and rented for $3 grand a month, $72,000 over 2 years. And now they're paying $200,000 more. They literally cost themselves $200,000 to $300,000 because they didn't take the advice of a professional who knew what they were talking about. Yep. Now, you know, Aunt Betty, who's your realtor, who says, "Oh, the market's going to crash. The market's going to crash."
Around.
Right. You know, don't worry. You know, I saw this in 07 and 08, not understanding the underlying economics of what was different then versus now, costs their niece and nephew, you know,
their dream home.
Exactly.
It's crazy.
And now forget it. I mean, the cost of living is so much higher, and people don't understand why, because there's so many people who need to buy. There's so many people who need a place to live, right?
And they don't want to pay rent.
They don't want to pay rent. And the millennial generation is the biggest population in the United States, and they own the least amount of real estate. So what does that mean? They need a place to live. They're tired of living with their mom and dad at 28, 29 years old, 30 years old. They want to move out. They need a place to live, and they don't want to go spend $3 grand a month on a rental in a building owned by BlackRock or any of these other hedge funds.
It's just you're just pissing your money
The
away.
American dream has always been to own a home, build a family, build a life for yourself, right?
Yes.
That's what everybody still to this day, I will argue till I'm blue in the face. People still want that, right? Maybe they don't want it at 22 like they did 20 years ago, but at 32, they want that.
They want that.
You know, and so people don't understand where these things are going, and they get bad advice. And so, you know, it's just so interesting to me to see how agents can be out there doing that and costing them, and they give everybody a bad reputation. You know what I mean? And that's where, you know, talking about the sales and marketing, getting that message across to people is so essential, because that's how you make your money. And talking about before with your marketing and paid marketing, right? Your paid marketing, you could take the exact same campaign, right? You're going to convert at a much higher rate than a brand new investor.
Yes.
So they may not get that campaign that converted at 10 to 1. They may convert it 3 to 1 or 4 to 1.
That's still good though.
But it's phenomenal. And that's the thing that they don't understand is, yes, you may not convert at the rate at the most skilled guy, but it's like, you know, you talk about hockey. You don't have to be an all-star.
Yeah.
Right. Even if you're in the league, you're doing pretty damn good.
If you're in the show, you're doing something.
You know what I mean? Like, not everybody is going to be a Connor McDavid. Like, it's just the way that it is. So you need to understand that. Now, maybe with practice and time, the beautiful thing about business, and the thing that I loved about it, you know, talking about playing hockey, I always looked at it and said, look, as much as I love this, eventually there's a stop.
The window is right there.
There's a date that you can no longer do it. Right. No matter what, your body will break down. You won't be able to compete. There'll be younger, faster, stronger kids coming up. Business is not like that.
It's the opposite.
It's the businesses of today are run by people in the latter half of their careers because they have the experience, they have the training, they have the knowledge.
Yeah.
And it's like it's a constant pursuit of trying to grow and get better.
Yeah.
And that's why they're the best.
100%. Dude, that's so true, because like people in the beginning, they like, go back to the experience thing. They don't have the experience, and then they have the wrong expectations. Like, if you know this business is hard but worth it, and you actually play the long game, it's almost hard, and you do the right activities, which is obviously a big X factor. It's hard to not succeed if you have the right attitude, you do the right work every day, and you're consistent. You play the long game, and you hang out with people who are successful. It's more likely that you'll succeed than you'll fail. But if you don't do that stuff, you're going to become a statistic. And I remember at that seminar back when I started, I was like the youngest guy there because I was 20, you know, it's like, but then I knew most people probably weren't going to be successful because there was like 300 people in there. I mean, there's no way there are going to be 300 wholesaling companies, you know. But I was like, I'm not going to be a statistic. I'm going to be a success story. And like, I made that decision that day that I was going to be successful. And then I had to figure the rest out, which has been a journey. Still not easy. I mean, new business levels, new problems. I mean, we had a bad July. It was a disaster. That's part of business. But then once you kind of get more established, your problems just change. Like, you don't need to know how to find a deal because you can do like 2 of those a week. But then you have cash flow issues and team issues and operating issues and like 20 files open, and then they're all like the pipelines. But you have different problems, and you still get just as stressed out, but it's just a different type of problem you have.
Your level of compensation is always in direct proportion to the size of the problem you solve.
And your ability to solve them. Yes.
Yeah, that's really what it boils down to. I mean, you know, my partner Blake, he told me when my business was really starting to grow quickly, he was like, look, the more deals you have, the more problems you're gonna have.
I'm experiencing that right now, dude. It's a disaster. It's crazy. Like, I'm grateful for it, but it's wild.
It is. And that's the mindset shift, right?
Yeah.
Is like, I could have no problems because I have no deals.
And no money.
Exactly. Or it's like kind of like, well, you kind of got what you wished for.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Dude, that's exactly how I felt. I'm like, oh yeah, I gotta sleep in this bed I made.
Yeah. And that's,
you know?
that's the, and you have to look at it as a new opportunity to grow, a new opportunity to solve those problems and get to that next level.
Yeah, man.
You know,
so true.
It's
bro.
A completely different. It's a psychology change. It's
everything is
shift.
psychology at the end of the day, bro. Like, I used to hear that, and I was like, oh, where's the tactics? It's all mindset, bro.
It really is, and I always say that in what what both of us do. Really, it's all psychology and dealing with how to kind of find that middle ground with the people that you're working with.
Communicate effectively to get them to see. Yeah.
You know, you've read Never Split the Difference.
One of my favorite books.
Yeah.
And read that book like 10 times.
And that's what it is. It's trying to find that place to kind of find common ground so that it's a mutually beneficial thing. They both parties benefit, right? Like that's what you're trying to accomplish, a goal.
Totally, bro.
So it's
I see that a lot too with like people look at wholesaling, like buying houses at half of market value. Dude, my typical thing is like, if you want the most money for your house, don't sell it to me. Like, list the house. This is what you should do. This is what I think it's worth. And they sell me and they're like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do, like, I just want a quick deal. I don't like, I know I'm leaving money on the table. So like, I don't feel bad buying a house half off because I'm like, I've told them their options, and Brett's like just as good as me, if not better now. And we're so transparent with these sellers. Like, when we make a $50K assignment fee, like, it was a total voluntary transaction. I see a lot of wholesalers don't do that. And then they get a bad, like, the seller gets pissed or whatever. Like, no, don't list your house. Why would you ever do that? Well, you're going to get way more money. Like, they just, no, you should sell for cash. I buy as is. You got to be transparent with your customers. Like, even in the retail business, like, hey, you're going to get more money if we put this on the MLS. We're probably going to get jerked around with inspections. The appraisal's a variable. They're more, like, these are the risks you're taking, but this is the benefit you're going to get. You're going to get max value.
100%. That's, from day one, that's how I always operated in my business, was, working with buyers. If we went into a home and I was like, look, you should not buy this house. We've had conversations. Like, I'll sell people on why they shouldn't do something.
Yeah, and that builds trust.
Right? It does. And that's exactly what you're doing, is you're protecting their best interest instead of just going in like a car salesman and saying, you got to just buy this. You got to just do it. It's the best car, whatever it is. Same exact thing. It's like, if we'll do deals off market, right? And everybody knows almost always an off-market deal is never at the full market value.
Never.
That's the whole point of the off-market. But a lot of the time, the seller does not care, right? The seller is either looking for something to be discreet, or they're looking for a smooth transaction, or they just want, one party involved and they just want to keep it simple and they just want it done, right? So everybody always assumes that price is the most important thing, and it's not.
No, it never is.
No, and so understanding, but that's where we both come in, is understanding where that person's needs lie and then advising them on it. Like, when you're telling someone you should list your home, this is what that situation calls for, that's advising them, right? You're just telling them what the best options are for them. Now, at the end of the day, I always say my job is to provide you with the information to make you comfortable, to make an educated decision, and then what you decide is up to you.
Dude, I kind of say the same thing. It's funny.
Right? I mean, that's really what you're doing, is giving information. It's your house, Mr. Seller, right?
Yeah.
Like, you make the final call, whether you sell to Greg or you list with me.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter. It's your decision. Nobody's here to persuade you either way.
Yeah.
You have to make that decision based on this and what your situation is. And that's what we're doing. And people don't think that. They want to convince, they want to sell, they want to.
Yeah.
And
take this low ball offer. I'm buying as is. Leave the piano in there. Dude, it costs like $800 to remove a piano. You're going to give them 80 grand of equity. Like, I see this so much craziness. Dude, there's so many bad wholesalers out there. Like, I just see, like, you get surprised. It's just like, treat people the way, like, I almost like look at it like if that was your grandma.
Right.
Like, are you going to like swindle your grandma? Probably, hopefully not.
Some people would, unfortunately.
Anything will do. Now with the economy, people need cash. But yeah, like, just treat people how you would treat them if they were your family, and be transparent with them. And like, we tell the sellers, we are going to make a profit on this house. We are going to make a profit. We might wholesale it. Like, we're so upfront.
You have to be.
And they love when we make money. Yeah. Like, I hope you make as much money as you can. As long as I get my 350, you could sell us for $1 million.
They don't care.
They don't care, dude.
I've seen it on the investment properties that I've purchased.
They don't care, bro.
When we're negotiating, we'll say, look, this is where we're at.
Yeah.
Because we need to make this return.
Yeah.
We'll tell you, like, hey, this is the return, our target return, and this is why we feel that we need to be here to get that.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, okay, if that makes sense for you and we'll buy at this number. But they understand that. They know that you need to make money. You're not a charity.
Exactly.
You're not you're not philanthropy. You know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, we go around buying houses for way over market value to lose money.
We lose money. And then we go tithe to the church after.
Exactly.
With our negative money. Yeah.
So really quick, I want to shift gears because I know we've talked sales and marketing.
Yeah.
But now I want to talk about something similar in branding.
Yeah.
Right? Because obviously, whether it's intentional or not, you've built a brand on social media.
Yeah.
You know, your Instagram, YouTube channel, your podcast.
Yeah.
Kind of like take us through what was the impetus for you to say, I want to really get active? Because you were honestly very early in the investment side of things for like building a brand.
Yeah.
Right? So like what was the cause for that? And kind of like what are you looking to achieve? And kind of, take us through like what you're doing right now.
So for sure, I mean, the main thing on the social media was I just started to document what I was doing. And then people thought it was cool. And then like I would just share more stuff. And then I'm like, this is very low. Like,
Greg, how could you be so egotistical to think people would care what you're doing?
Yeah, right.
But that's what people think.
Would just follow me, and then like I would like just do me at take a picture of me at a house, or like then people started knowing that I was the guy who buys properties, and then we would get deals. We'd get other investors. I mean, that's like a byproduct, but it's like I just do it to like just to share now. But like, yeah. People would bring us houses. We still to this day JV a ton of deals. The best ever deal I did, it was $135K net fix and flip from a guy on Instagram, wholesaler. Paid a wholesaler $60,000 out in Southern California, Spring Valley near San Diego. $135K net fix and flip from freaking Instagram.
You know, I talk about this all the time
from social media.
When you have a brand on social media, they seek you out.
Yeah, you're inbound. It's inbound. Podcast is the same thing. I wanted to interview my friends because I made friends with a lot of successful people. Why don't we record this podcast show just like we're doing now? Yeah. Let's put it out there. Hundreds of people listen to it. And you
create a
become
community.
Like, and you become, it's inbound, right? But like now I just do like stuff like every day, Monday to Friday, I put a little cheesy real estate tip out there. And I get people like, I watch every single video and I'm like, really? Like, I'm like tired. I haven't had coffee yet. And they're like, because I just try to share what I know. Like I'm very transparent with what I share. I don't bullshit people. I tell people the way it is. And it's just been a good thing. It's like, and then I feel like when I put videos out, like I teach myself almost. Like I have to confirm what I already know because it's got to make sense to someone else. So it actually makes me a better communicator.
100%. Like the reason I love doing stuff like this, and I'll text you and be like, hey, where's the best source for lists?
And I'm like, bam.
Right. Because, it's great to have those resources to learn from people.
Yeah.
Right? Like I look at what you've done in your business and I look at how you track your KPIs, know your numbers, all of that. And it's like, okay, well, if that's how he runs his business, I should probably do something very similar to that.
Yeah.
And that's the benefit of social media. You learn about that. Right?
Exactly.
It's like, you do your book reviews. It's like, well, if Greg likes this book and we have a similar mindset, I would probably like this book. It's a great opportunity to learn from. And I think what attracts a lot of people to your content is that you're clearly in a growth mindset, right? So a lot of people, it's kind of like they know what they know. They think they're an all-knowing person and they just like preach. Like you're not preaching. You're clearly just a middleman for the information that you're learning.
I'm a knowledge broker.
And you're constantly trying to find new information.
Yes.
So that's what's awesome is you have to, especially nowadays with how quick things are changing and with AI and everything that's coming, like you have to be on the front cutting edge of all of this. Otherwise, you're just going to lose to the competition. Because
Yeah.
for every one of you who doesn't adapt, there's going to be 5 people who will. So it's like you need to constantly be learning and evolving. And I think it's evident with what you're doing, right? With what you're talking about and your new strategies. Like you talked about bandit signs versus now your PPC.
Spending
and it's like
$25,000 a month on marketing.
Right.
Yeah, like that's
it's a
big jump. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's a journey there with experience and knowledge to learn from. And so for the new person, like I tell all the agents who join, it's like, in the beginning, what's on your side? Time. You've got nothing but time.
That's right.
Right? You may not have money, but you've got time. And then what you're trying to get to is where you have no time, but lots of money that you can spend for your time. And that's the shift.
Yeah. And that's what people, it's worth waiting for that, because when you're starting out and you don't have any money, it's like you almost can't believe like I'll have money one day and I'll be able to spend 25 G's a month in marketing. Like that's a ton of money.
Right.
It's almost 300 grand a year. And then you get to the point over 5 years, nothing happens overnight. And you're like, wow, I can't afford to cold call because I'll lose money.
Your dollars per hour.
I learned that from Darren Hardy. Yep. Like, what's your dollar per hour? And it's like, if you can have a cold calling company cold call on your behalf, and then you just talk to the leads that are interested, you just save yourself 4 hours, which if let's say you make $300 an hour, like it's just, it becomes a time equation.
You send out 10,000 letters and let's just say 200 people call.
Yeah.
Right? Are all 200 serious leads?
No,
maybe 20 of them are.
Yeah, maybe.
So do you want to be on the phone with 200 people or 5, 10, or 15?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So it's just like, where is your time best deployed? Now, maybe in the beginning, it makes more sense for you to be on the phone because you need to develop your skills. You need to get better at converting and talking to people. You need to learn what to ask and how to handle those conversations. But once you've done it a few thousand times, your time is probably better spent learning about PPC and deploying capital in those areas.
Optimizing campaign. Yeah. Like working on your leadership. Yeah. It's a whole nother skill set.
Yeah.
And it's like,
now you're not just solo Greg. You've got other people that you're in charge of.
Full-time mouths to feed.
Right.
Like it's full. Like that's the thing I realized. Like I have 3 full-time mouths to feed.
Yeah. And you have a responsibility.
A moral responsibility.
Exactly.
To be successful.
Exactly.
It's a standard, dude.
You have, when you're a leader of people, you take accountability for them now, right? Like you take on that responsibility of helping them and you want to see them grow and succeed. And you take on that feeling of like, I'm now responsible for helping this person achieve their goals.
Yes.
And yes, while there is agency in each and every individual, at the end of the day, as the leader, you're responsible for them. And that's a whole nother level.
It's a whole nother ball of wax, bro. I saw it. Brett did it. Like I saw him, like he's made some crazy progress and it's just like, wow. Like I saw him start and where he's at now. Mm-hmm. And it's like, wow, it's crazy. I was like, he did the work, so I'm going to give him the credit, but like I was able to provide that vehicle. Yeah, it's fulfilling, bro.
You're there for guidance, right? You're there to help. You could only help someone who wants it, though.
It's the facts, bro.
At the end of the day, they have to be hungry. They have to have that ownership for themselves, take on that responsibility and put the time in.
Totally, bro.
And, that's a completely, now, getting away from sales and marketing and into leadership. It's
crazy, like
different.
starting there too, like starting at the bottom and then like 8 years later, having 3 full-time people and doing a pretty decent amount of volume. It's just, I was telling someone the other day, I was like, you'd be surprised on what you can do in 5 to 8 years. Because that's not that long, but it's not that short.
Right.
And if you just put your freaking foot on the gas and focus and you're strategic, it's crazy. It's not that long.
That's, and it's always in hindsight, right?
Yeah.
Because, when you're getting started, it's like, you don't see that ability to get there.
Yeah.
But it's like, I look at even my own business and it's basically doubled every year for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Right. And it's looking at that and saying, holy crap, like I had a goal and guess what? Every single one of those years, I never hit my goal. But now in year 5, right, it's 3x what my goal was 5 years ago.
It's crazy, bro.
Right? So it's like, I didn't reach that goal that year, but I doubled my business. And then the next year I got the goal from the previous year, but I had a new goal, but it's far exceeding that.
Yeah, it just, the goalpost just keeps going down the line.
And that's the fun. That's the adventure.
It's such a journey, man. And it's so worth it. I always tell it's so worth it, man. It's so worth it. Like people like, it's worth it. The work, you're going to have to do the work no matter what. Right. But like the real estate business, whether you want to be a real estate agent or a real estate investor, it's 1,000% worth it. There's unlimited income opportunity, which is 100% true. The rentals, the wealth, the ability to grow your net worth is like, I remember you told me to read a book when I started, The Millionaire Real Estate Investor. Like I read that book and it like changed my life.
Yeah.
And
That's a
now
great
like I
book.
apply that shit,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
It's crazy.
Because it wasn't as relevant in the beginning because I didn't have any money, but now I'm like, oh my God, I've been doing this for like 2 years now, like buying these properties and refining them and shit.
And that's what's cool about books, right? It's like you go and revisit things that you you didn't have the conscious level to understand when you read it the first time, but then you go back and you read it the second or third.
Makes sense
every single time. I always think of Think and Grow Rich, which is my
that's
number one.
That's a great book. Yeah.
Every time I read that book, it's like a completely different experience because you're a completely different person.
Yeah.
So it's cool to see. But before we wrap up, what's next? Like, what are you getting into? I know you're buying a lot of properties. You kind of, in the beginning, I know you were basically wholesaling, then you were wholesaling and flipping. Now you're buying and holding.
Yeah.
Like, what's next? Where are you going?
I want to build up the rentals a lot more. Like right now I have 5 properties that I own and then I have 2 in contract. No, 2 in contract that I'm going to rent
What
out.
are you focusing on? Residential, commercial?
Yeah, so residential. I've done commercial. I actually lost money on a commercial deal. That was just poor execution and a bad physical property, but my fault. Right? I got to take responsibility for that.
Experience?
Great. Oh, I learned the seminar from that one. But anyway, I like condos. I like SFRs and the small multis.
Yep.
Like 2-family stuff like that. But I actually, most of the properties I have are condos, believe it or not. Condos and townhouses. And some of them don't have HOAs. Like depends on where it is. But I've found that it's easier to get them cheap, at least from what I found. The HOA is like the glorified like CapEx, but because like there's not a lot of maintenance on condos usually.
It's built in essentially.
Yeah, and it's easy to come up with values, and I've just found
management is easier remotely.
Manages easy, and then it's just like, it's not that hard to get a tenant in there because it's like there's a lot of demand for them.
It's funny that you say it's usually easier to find deals there because
I love condos. Bro. I love them.
And apartments are typically the first thing to go down in value when the market turns, and they're usually the last thing to appreciate.
Yeah.
And the reason being is people are so quick to discard them a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Because of how easy it is, right? Like because there's a lot of them, number one.
Oh, a ton of them.
But number two, it's, people are willing to part with them. So it makes sense that those would a lot of the time be easier to get cheaper.
Dude, I've gotten home run. Like I'm talking like I bought a property in Newburgh, in the town of Newburgh in Barclay Manor, $46,000. I bought it all cash. It rents for $1,200 a month.
I mean, that's
no
insane.
mortgage on it.
That's insane.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like, where are you going to find that deal?
It's 25% return on the purchase price a year.
Dude.
So in 4 years.
I've never seen it either.
Yeah.
Never seen it.
That's awesome.
Dude, it was like, I have another one. My first ever rental I bought this is a townhouse in Middletown, 65 G's, refied it for 100. So like all like no skin in the game.
Yep.
After I paid the hard money guy back, that's worth 240 right now.
Wow.
And I owe 100 on it. No, I owe less than 100. I owe 87 because I have the mortgage on it for a couple of years. It's just, I like to buy these properties at a really good discount and then do the refi. Like the last one I did is this SFR in Monroe. I bought it for 140. It's worth 140. It's worth 245-ish roughly, like conservatively. I borrowed 160. It needed no rehab. So I basically got paid to buy this house, and then I just did a rate and term refi. And when you rolled all the closing costs in, I still have no money in that deal, and it makes like $100 a month, which I don't care about the cash. The cash flow is whatever.
But that's the beautiful thing about rentals, right?
Yeah.
Is you're just that's wealth building because you're allowing
Yeah.
time to just let appreciation.
And the principal gets paid down, and the market rent goes up, and the market value goes up. It's crazy, dude.
And at the end of the day, wholesaling and flipping and selling houses on the brokerage retail side, they're the same thing.
Transactional. Real estate.
Transactional. You're not, they call it investing, but you're really not investing,
You're not.
right? You're transacting, you're brokeraging, you're brokering a deal, a transaction. And so the second you stop doing that, the money stops.
You get fired every month.
Exactly.
And you have to go rehire yourself.
Yeah.
It's crazy. That's the one drawback to this business. And like, that's where I want to get like my rental income up to where like it's like more than my expenses, which is not there yet. I love the transactional business because you can stack a lot of money. You can build a lot of nest egg, but like it is a business where you have to keep.
You don't have the same amount of freedom. Whereas if all of your expenses are covered, all your cost of living is covered with rental income, you can do whatever.
You don't have to.
Ultimate freedom.
You never have to work.
Ultimate freedom.
Ultimate freedom.
That's the ultimate goal. That's that's the whole point.
It's not easy to get there, but it's possible.
No, it's possible. And I mean, the beauty is, what are you, 20?
28.
28. Yeah. So you've got a long time.
Yeah. I mean, it's exactly. And like if you can get good at buying properties at a discount and you can scale the BRRRR business, which I'm trying to do now, and I will do, if you can add one property a month and that average cash flow is like $200 a month, that's 2, 4, 6, 8. You stack that up over 60 months, 5 years, you don't have to work again. You know,
So I
it's a
want to
scalable
just
thing.
really quick point something out that you just said. $100, $200 a month in cash flow.
Yeah.
Because I mean, a lot of people who are like, I want $2,000, $3,000.
Well, what planet are they living on?
Thank you. That's very important.
Dude, if I break
People
even,
need to
I'm cool,
understand
bro.
that. People need to understand that. I literally will meet with investors who want $6,000-$8,000. It's just not attainable. If you want that, you got to be spending a couple million,
Maybe in Beverly Hills.
and you got to be buying the amount of cash you're going to need to get those types of cash flows.
No way,
It's not the same. The reality is people don't calculate the numbers properly, but that's a whole nother.
Yeah, those are like net numbers. I'm talking like $100, like
right.
If a property
That's
breaks
CapEx,
even,
that's vacancy, that's management, that's
taxes, and
everything. Yeah,
dude. If I break even on a rental, I'll buy it. If it loses $100 a month, I'll still do it because I know in 10 years I'm going to thank myself.
Exactly.
Because I can absorb $100 a month loss from the other properties that make like cash flow in the beginning doesn't really matter. You want to build your equity up. That's what the truth is.
100%. That's where the wealth is.
That's where the wealth is, man. And you're paying the mortgage down. Like the tenant's paying the mortgage. The property is statistically going up in value. If you bought it at a discount, like you have a wedge there. So like if you make $100 a month, it's not going to change your life. If you lose $100 a month, it's not going to change your life. Right. But if you do that for 15 years and you have those, like I have 3 of the properties I have are on 15-year mortgages.
So in 15 years, you own them outright.
Cash. And the market rents, I raise the rent every year on my tenants because they have to.
Deferred pleasure, essentially, right? You're pushing that down the road so that in 15 years, you're set.
You're set. Yeah, exactly. Dude, the rental business is a phenomenal business. It's a pain in the ass, but it's a phenomenal business.
It is.
It's a very aggravating business.
So lastly, where can people find you? I know YouTube, Instagram, kind of tell us where can people connect?
Instagram is the best channel. It's Grego_37. I put out daily content. I mean, every day for the most part, Monday to Saturday. And that's the best way to follow me. And then the podcast is called The Real Estate Investing Fast Track. Check that out. If you want to send me an email personally, greg@velocityhousebuyers.com. Those are the 3 ways to get in touch with me.
Cool. Well, thanks again for coming, man. I appreciate it. This was awesome. We definitely should do it again.
Absolutely, buddy.